So it's been a couple of weeks, and probably been over a month, and lots changed actually. Fair bit's changed. New couch. Shout out Andy for the wicked upgrade. This thing is super plush. New bench, Tasmanian oak or Tasmanian ash or something. It's killer. And I put the DHF on the front. So I mean, why I've been quiet for? I mean, I go through stages anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. But I lost Sev a month ago. So Sev died middle of the night, and pretty rough. A couple of weeks just trying to accept it and get over the hump of. I think the first week was the worst. Just that grief, like you just feel like you're just like a shell. You're just cruising around. I didn't know what to eat, didn't know what to do, didn't know, And once I got back into work, the rhythm started coming back and my routine started coming back, and I started thinking it a little bit differently and accepting it and just being grateful and thankful for what I had. So, rest in peace, Sevy. You are a legend. I buried him up on one of my favourite spots. Nice, kind of almost private lookout. It's killer. So, end of an era, I guess. Thank you to everybody who reached out when they found out. It definitely helped, for sure. I mean, I'm getting a bit choked up now about it. But anyway, let's move on from that. I got on the DHF today. I got back on the DHF, so I went Assegai for ages, DHR2. I stayed away from this DHF for a little while just to see if it was just a what I'm used to bias or a recency bias or whatever. DHS was just my, maybe there was something that I was connected to emotionally to it. So I wanted to check and see what the go was and what I preferred and see if there's any merit to these other tyres. Now the Assegai, done the review on it, just ultimate grip. Better grip everywhere than the DHF and the DHR2, except for on the edges. And it tends to bog down a touch sometimes. When you load it up, it bogs down a touch, whereas these don't. I went to the DHR2 off of the Assegai, and thinking the theory was the DHR2 would get rid of the vague spot that the DHF has. DHR2 felt really good. It felt really racy, little bit less compliant, a little bit less supple. Not compliant, compliant. Less supple than the Assegai and the DHF. That was a double down versus this is an EXO. The Assegai was an EXO Plus. Both quite supple. So I put the DHR2 double down max grip on the back now because I cut my aggressor just recently. The aggressor was pretty much done for, but I cut it on the Linton Trails of all places. Pretty rocky and sharp, I guess, out there. And I can't believe how much abuse that tyre took before it cut, but yeah, finally cut it, and so I chucked the DHR2 on this morning out the back, and it's killer. It's perfect. I've always liked the DHR2 out the back, but the double downs I tend to cut, and the DH only comes in a max grip, which has just changed as of a couple of days ago. Maxis have just dropped their new double down, their new DH casing DHR2 in a max terror. So a little harder rubber in the middle, a little harder rubber on the edges, so it lasts a lot longer and probably digs in quite well instead of folding and complying on those harder, faster trails. Up the front, I love the DHR2. It did definitely get rid of that vague spot that the DHF had, but like I said, just a little less supple. Now putting this DHF on today, I was out setting up a bike for a friend. It's actually Troy Brosnan's old Canyon Sender. So he basically pulled all his gear off, put a new fork on and I believe a new shock, maybe a new shock or maybe the old shock or whatever. But had a bit of a tickle to set that up, and that bike is really good. I like that Canyon. That Sender was really, really fun. So just out of Fox, so isolated with the style of trail, but set it up for Fox and on Fox Fast because he's got a race coming up soon. And that was DHR2 front and rear. So I rode that all morning and then got on my bike with the DHF, and this was the first lap I've done on the DHF since initially changing the Assegai months ago. And straight away I was at home. It feels really supple, perfectly charging. It's a nice big kind of bag of a tyre. Stands a little bit wider and a little bit bigger than a DHR2, and it's just supple. It is just supple, confident, and I mean, it was hero dirt out there today anyway, but even still I was pushing it on the, giving it the beans, and I love it. I'm definitely a DHF guy for sure. I got my new bike coming back to 27.5s. I've got a DHF max grip for it, ready to roll, and I don't regret putting that on there now at all, because coming back onto it, I was thinking maybe, there's always a million things going through my head. Maybe the Assegai is going to be the one I end up back on, and then I was thinking, nah, but that bogged down feeling's not, like, I can't overlook that. And the edge grip of the Assegai, I can't overlook that. Putting this thing on the edge, just a dream. So super confident, love the bike. This Slash is good. I've finally got my head around the suspension too. So I worked it out with the air shock, and then I came to the coil. I started on a 425, went down to a 400, and then I finally bought myself a 375, and I got hold of my old 350 spring. Thinking the 350 is going to be a bit soft on this, but it's quite a progressive frame as well. The 350 ends up being perfect for this bike on all my lower speed trails. It is great. So within the confines of what the suspension design allows for and gives me to work with, it's killer. It's 350 everywhere. At Fox, I put the 375 on today because I've really sussed it. I feel like I've really sussed it. So Marzocchi Bomber, I'm gonna get that service very soon as well. I'm gonna keep this bike when I get my new one and kind of back to back with the two bikes. But I'm gonna get that Bomber service because I do have a low compression tune in it right now, and now that I'm down at a lower spring rate, I don't feel like I need that lower compression tune. I'm still quite open on the low speed. I'm 2 or 3 clicks on the low speed with a good fast rebound. So I'm 11 out from closed on the rebound on the 350 spring, pretty much everywhere on the lowest and medium speed trails. And then when I get to the higher speed trails, like Fox today, for instance, the 375 is just a dream. But with the 375, that's 2 clicks slower rebound too, with the 375. No, so also 375 no preload, 350 one turner preload. They are different. Ride height's slightly different. I'm a little higher in the back on the 375. But for the higher speed tracks, it's the equivalent to the amount of force I can create on the 350 spring at lower speed. So you the faster you're hitting things, the more force you're creating. So I've really got this thing dialed. I took my Zeb off, even though it's got the luft cap in it and whatnot. It's just friction, and I think the friction is maybe the motor oils that I've been experimenting with have affected the seals, maybe swelled seals a tiny bit. Lyrik, I've got Motor X 7.5 weight fork oil in it, and it's very slippery and it feels excellent. The fork, I've got the B1 spring in this Lyrik 170, and it is just, it's so good. I've got so much faith in this fork. I love it. I absolutely love it. The Zeb I liked, and as it got a little stickier, like those seals must have deteriorated a little bit, and it just became too. The real low frequency, or I don't know if you call that high frequency, like on chattery climbs and stuff and whatnot, it was just giving me hand fatigue. It was just giving me a bit of hand fatigue. And so I think it deteriorated for sure, because when I first put it on, luft cap in, it was very supple and pretty much what this feels like, but bigger and stronger. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. But this is obviously lighter as well and more playful, a little bit more flexy. But I love it. I prefer it. I think it's killer. I just tested I didn't test a new Zeb. I just set a new Zeb up for a friend. Haven't tested them yet. I only do bouncing around and car park tests and whatever. And I feel like I found a fairly good setup for him. He's around the 80 kilo mark, maybe a little more. 79 PSI we ended up with him. Rebound, I'm not sure of the clicks. I can't remember the clicks, but fast. Yeah, reasonably fast. And high-speed compression open, and low speed compression on 5 clicks in from fully open. Spoke to him today, he was out there riding and he said it was mint, so we could probably fine tune more from there, but sounds like we got him absolutely hauling straight out the gate, so that's good. He's come from a Luftcap Zeb, which I set up for him previously, and he absolutely loved it. So bit all over the place with this video, but kind of just a dumping update of what's been going on. So love this bike. Definitely like sending it, and I definitely like it on the higher speed trails. So Moriata 375, Fox 375, Horsies I can go either way, 350 or 375. Death Track 350 for sure. Waterfall Gully 350 for sure. So something to consider when you watch the episodes of Dialed and stuff like that, where they follow the World Cup and it's the Fox crew setting people's bikes up. You can see there's every track needs a slightly different setup, obviously, and you've got to think about whether kind of what speed you're riding at, and you do got to dig deep. You've got to find your baseline for your regular trails, and one setup, I guess what I'm trying to say is one setup ain't going to do everywhere. It's going to feel different at a lower speed or steeper trail than it does at a high speed motorway style trail. So you do have to change and chop and mess around a little bit. Fork, not so much. Fork, maybe a couple of PSI on a really high speed sucker, and then a couple of PSI back on the steeper, slower stuff. But if it's steep and hard G-outs, you keep that pressure the same as what you would run on a high speed track, but you just soften that rear end up a little bit or slow it down a bit and run that firmer spring. So I don't know, all over the place. I'm hanging for this new bike. Not sure what happened, but we had it arrived, the bike arrived, but it's the wrong frame. So it's the somehow it's an old frame rocked up. So I'm not sure what the go is. Banshee is sorting it out straight away, so shout out Banshee. I cannot wait to get on this bike, and I've had so much experience on these Banshees. The Paradox V3, the Phantom I don't know if that's V3. I think it was the first of its kind, and then the Titan, and they just all impress me. I love the feeling of the frame. It's really stiff and it's just a level above most alloy bikes for me, for what I feel anyway. So it's given me the carbon, that carbon stiffness without the hollowness of the carbon bike. So come on, please, this week, please. But who knows? Be patient, wait, and once I get this bike, we'll get her set up and see if it can keep up with this thing. I'm hoping it outshines it, to be honest. I've never really found that I can go super fast on this bike, but now that I've worked out this suspension, I kind of do feel like I can go super fast. So it's funny, it's taken me so long to get to it, and at the end of the year, it's always been 95%, or 90%, but I've just I've found that a little bit more out of it. So I'm always learning. I'm never, I don't profess to be an expert. I'm always learning, and I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get to a point where it's taking me less and less and less time to interpret how someone's bike feels to get them a good setup. So as that improves, I set up another bike yesterday. That was killer. We did a Santa Cruz Blur, like a little aggressive cross-country thing. It was wicked. Little 140 pike at the front, and we got that thing absolutely singing. So that was fun as well. Found a good setup on a 140 pike with a C1 spring. So all these springs are all different, and you have to, 3 tokens in a B1 feels garbage. 3 tokens in it feels like you need to take a heap out. 3 tokens in a C1 feels like it needs another token. So all spring designs are different. Fox 38, you go 2 tokens feels really, really good if you've got a heavy bike, or 1 token if you like a more aggressive, upright, a little bit less sag setup up the front. And then Fox 36 is kind of similar, but then you go to a Fox 34 and you want to go 4 tokens in there to get it feeling really good. Or a Fox 34 with a Luftcap, you'd be going 1 or 2 tokens. So everything's different. One setup doesn't do everything, and it's the same with rear shocks. It's all relative to the leverage ratio and there's so much different stuff. The style of shock, your Fox Float X2 versus a Float X, versus a RockShox Super Deluxe versus a Magneg Super Deluxe versus a Deluxe. So everything's different, and you've got to approach it independently on that bike. So forks, obviously a little bit more universal for per bike. Most bikes, if it's B1 Lyrik, I can have a setup for you for most any bike for your weight. But rear shock's completely different. So anyway, enough ranting, enough rattling. I just thought I'd keep you guys in the loop of what's going on and dose you up with some info. Love the DHF. RIP Sevy. What a life. What a killer dog. When I can bring myself to sit and watch hours of footage of him without kind of getting emotional, I'll put a little tribute together and just let that exist on the internet forever too. So yeah, that's it.